Thank you for joining this professional development video provided by the Office of Early Childhood at the Nebraska Department of Education. This presentation has 3 parts that will focus on intentional teaching with children during play. The first section will focus on the rationale for using intentional teaching during play, room arrangement, and basic support for play-based learning. The second part will focus on materials used throughout an early childhood classroom, and the third part will focus on intentional strategies that teachers can use to enhance children's growth and learning. Imagine walking into an early childhood classroom where children are busily engaged in interesting activities throughout the room. One child is building a tower of blocks. Another child is concentrating on using a magnifying glass to see the roots of a plant. By the art easel, a child is painting with broad strokes and talking about his trip to Grandma's house. Several children are in the house area where they have set up a restaurant. And in this room, all children are engaged with exploring their environment. And where are the adults? The adults are engaging with children as they listen to what the children are saying, watch what the children are doing, and enhance what the children are learning by extending or expanding each child's knowledge. Adults in this classroom are just as busy as the children, but their busyness looks different. The adults are following the children's interests and leads. The adults are responding to what the children are doing and saying. And the adults build on each child's knowledge and capability and provide the foundation for children to feel capable and smart, as well as being able to take a risk. While at first glance it may appear that the children are just playing, when we look closer, we notice how the adults support each child and provide opportunities for children to grow and learn. In the block area, the adult talks with the child about how tall her tower is getting and what else she can do to build a sturdy structure. In the science area, the adult shows the child a poster of labeled plant parts and then watches and encourages the child to draw her own plant and label the parts. At the art easel, the adult talks with the child about the visit to Grandma's and the things they did together. In the house area, the adult sits at the table and asks, "What is your special today and how much is it?" The adult and children have a discussion about favorite foods and how to cook them, which evolves into a talk about the jobs their parents have. The effect of this type of classroom has been researched extensively, and the results point toward the efficacy of using a play-based approach for the most positive outcomes when teaching young children. Some of the research has found that play enhances a child's language skills and math concepts, as well as building executive functioning skills such as paying attention, organizing and planning, initiating tasks, regulating emotions, and self-control. The use of social skills are enhanced through play, and children who are able to play tend to show fewer signs of stress and aggressive behavior. As a Nebraska early childhood teacher or administrator, you are probably familiar with the Early Childhood Environmental Rating Scale, 3rd edition, known as ECHRS 3. The ECHRS 3 is the most widely used program assessment tool in the United States and uses best practices from across the early childhood spectrum. The focus is a quality program that provides for the 3 basic needs of all children: protection of their health and safety, supporting and guiding social and emotional development, and opportunities for intellectual and language stimulation and appropriate learning. Nebraska early childhood public school programs are assessed using this widely researched tool. The purpose of ECHRS 3 is to provide support and guidance as schools work toward improving the quality of their programs. While scores are given on the ECHRS 3, it is by looking at the hows and whys of quality programs that local school districts can determine their own areas of strength and needs in order to strive for continual improvement. Obviously, there are certain individual considerations to be taken when looking at overall quality of an early childhood program. Some of these considerations can be length of time since school started, physical facility issues such as location and size of the early childhood environment, and new staff members. By focusing on improving quality while working around individual considerations, schools can better understand how to use the information gathered on the ECRS 3. It is important that schools receiving an ECRS 3 observation purchase the ECRS 3 book and become familiar with the items and attend training for ECRS 3. Please be sure it is the ECRS 3 edition and not the ECRS R edition, which was used prior to 2016. Training information can be found on the Early Childhood Training Center calendar. The link to the training calendar can be found on the resources slide. There are 6 ECRS 3 subscales with a score given for each subscale as well as an overall program score. The 6 subscales are Space and Furnishings, Personal Care Routines, Language and Literacy, Learning Activities, Interaction, and Program Structures. The focus for this video is the subscale of learning activities, although some of what we talk about will bring in all the other subscales except for personal care routines. Just as we should take a holistic approach to teaching young children, so too should we approach quality in early childhood programs in a holistic manner. Focusing on the use of ECRS 3 as a tool for reflection and growth can help administrators and staff understand that the hows and whys of the ECRS 3 components are more important than the scores. There are several aspects when considering learning activities. They include adult interaction, materials, and room arrangement. Adult interaction is vital to every early childhood program and includes 2 types of adult interaction: basic interaction and intentional interaction. With basic interaction, adults are pleasant and present in the classroom, but are not intentionally increasing the opportunities for children to grow. Intentional interactions mean that the adult is purposeful in how they respond to children during play. They purposefully expand and extend a child's play in order to support the child's growth and learning. We will talk about basic interaction later in part 1 of this video, and we will discuss intentional interaction during part 3. Materials are a must for children. Interesting materials that captivate a child's interest are needed in a quality program. These materials can be found items such as old cell phones, empty boxes, and old dress-up clothes. They can be natural items such as a bird's nest, interesting rocks, or sticks from different trees. They can also be purchased items including art materials and math games. The second part of this video will talk about materials specific to each area. A first impression is always important, and the early childhood room arrangement is a vital first impression for ensuring a quality program. Now, a quality room arrangement does not mean that everything is brand new and expensive. Rather, it means that thought has gone into setting up the flow and function of the room with materials, equipment, and furniture readily available. Let's look a little closer at room arrangement. Early childhood classrooms are set up to provide children with a variety of materials and activities that are easily accessible. The play space should be available to children for at least 1 hour per 3-hour time period. This allows plenty of time for children to delve into meaningful play. More information on meaningful play can be found on the professional development video, The Value of Play, which is available through NDE. How the space is arranged is as important as the materials that are placed in the space. Each classroom is unique and offers its own specific challenges. Early childhood educators can assess their classroom's strengths and limitations by considering these items: space and boundaries, proximity and permanence, home and culture, children engaged in learning or challenging behavior. Let's consider each of these in more detail. Early childhood educators usually set up areas or centers for different types of play, such as dramatic play, the book area, or art. ECRS 3 has a definition for play area and interest center that we will discuss on the next slide. For now, just consider the areas that are placed around the room as we look at space and boundaries. Clearly defined boundaries help with the organization of the room and provide children with the ability to independently use the materials in the space. The space should be set up so that children and adults can move easily about the room. Traffic patterns should be considered when setting up the space. If a play space is continually interrupted by traffic flowing through the space, children may become frustrated and challenging behavior could occur. On the other hand, a large open space can be very tempting for young children to run through. Educators should be proactive in setting up the space so that issues can be prevented before happening. Some play areas will need more space than others. Block play requires a larger space, while a writing center may only have room for 1 or 2 children. It is important to keep in mind the purpose of the play area and how many children will want to play in that space. Educators should think carefully about how much space each area needs and plan their room accordingly. Eckers 3 guidelines distinguish between a play area and an interest center in this way. A play area is a space where play materials are provided for children to use, while an interest center is a clearly defined play area for a particular kind of play. A space set up on a large rug with shelves that hold musical instruments, blocks, puzzles, and a train set with train tracks is considered a play area, as several types of play can take place. Music with the instruments, building with the blocks, fine motor with the puzzles, and dramatic play with the train tracks. A space that is set up as an interest center is clearly for one specific type of play. An educator may have set up a writing table with pencils, markers, paper, and word cards. This would be considered an interest center, as the specific purpose is for writing. We can think of an interest center as a space that is protected for a certain type of play. This allows children who are interested in that type of play to be able to use the materials in the intended way. So let's imagine that a play area is set up on the rug with instruments, blocks, puzzles, and the train set. And let's suppose another child has taken out the train tracks and set up an elaborate track for his train to use. Now imagine that a child decides she wants to build with the blocks, but when she walks over to the block area, the train tracks are taking up all the space. Where can she build? This is not to say that a play area is a bad thing, only that it cannot be considered an interest center when scoring the Eckers 3. Teachers should consider carefully what play areas they want in their classrooms and what interest centers they will provide. To score at the 5 level on the Eckers 3 subscale of space and furnishings, at least 5 interest centers, including a cozy area, must be present in the classroom. Possibilities for interest centers include blocks, house, science, books, cozy, art, writing, math, fine motor, music, and computer. A teacher may determine many other possible interest centers as well. By looking at proximity and permanence, you can consider the best placement of furnishings and areas throughout the room, as well as taking into consideration supervision of the room. If the classroom has a sink, the art area should probably be located near it for easy cleanup. Games and puzzles should have a table close by for easy use. If half of the room is carpeted, the noise of the block area would be muffled on the carpet as opposed to the tiled floor, while sand and water tables are best placed on the tiled floor. Each classroom will have its own permanent fixtures and considerations to think about while planning the layout of the classroom. Another important aspect of the room setup is how easily teachers can view the entire area. Since teachers will often be on the floor while they play with children, it is best to actually sit on the floor and see how easy it is to scan the room. Are there tall shelves that impede the view? Is the room L-shaped and require teachers to stay in designated areas throughout playtime? Can the bathroom be easily seen from all the play areas? Planning ahead will help alleviate issues that can arise from inadequate supervision or design issues. In setting up the classroom for play, teachers should separate noisy and quiet areas. Noisy areas include dramatic play, blocks, and music, while quiet areas include books, writing, and listening. Buffer areas such as computers or iPads, science, fine motor, math, and art can separate noisy from quiet areas and allow the quiet areas to be used effectively. Young children require comfort and care from adults as well as from the environment. By providing home-like features in the early childhood classroom, young children will feel more comfortable and safe. This secure feeling allows children to participate more fully in learning experiences and promotes positive relationships with adults. A positive relationship between adults and children is the foundation of a successful early learning environment. Look around your classroom and ask yourself, what home-like features are included? Are there areas where children can be comfortable and cozy? How are different cultures reflected in the classroom? Young children require comfort and care from adults as well as from the environment. By providing home-like features in the early childhood classroom, young children will feel more comfortable and secure. This secure feeling allows children to participate more fully in learning experiences and promotes positive relationships with adults. A positive relationship between adults and children is the foundation of a successful early learning environment. Look around your classroom and ask yourself, what home-like features are included? Are there areas where children can be comfortable and cozy? How are different cultures reflected in the classroom? Adult interaction will ensure that children are engaged in learning as they move about the room. Adults will watch for possible challenging behavior due to issues in the environment, including materials. By being proactive and watching for possible issues, adults can provide support so children stay engaged rather than initiate challenging behavior. After setting up the environment and providing time for play, the level of adult interaction will determine how effective the environment is for promoting growth and development. Obviously, there are different levels of adult involvement. All Ecker's 3 subscales are scored on a scale of 1 to 7. In the learning activities subscale, adults are rated on how they interact with children throughout the learning areas. At the lowest level, or at the 1 level, adults would ignore or interact negatively with children during play. Few or no questions or comments would be made. Little or no interest in what children are playing would be shown by adults. At level 3 in the learning activities, adults must have some basic positive involvement. We will discuss this basic positive involvement, and then in part 3, we will discuss intentional strategies that can be used at the 5 level and 7 level of Ecker's 3. For basic involvement during play, all or most of the interaction between adults and children should be positive. During play, adults will be in the same areas as children and may move around the room periodically. Adults might smile at a child building with blocks or give a thumbs up to a child as they write their name on an art project. At this level, adults should join in with children's play as they mirror their actions or ask closed-ended questions such as, what color is that block? What shape is the pizza? Is your baby tired? Adults may comment on the materials or interactions of children during play. You are playing with the blocks. You are being a mom. That's a beautiful painting. While these interactions are positive, they are not expanding the children's learning or supporting higher level thinking. A room with adults providing basic involvement can be a warm, pleasant place, but it is one where adults can strengthen their own interaction skills to improve each child's learning and experience during play. During part 3, we will talk about ways for adults to provide more intentional and purposeful support for children. This concludes part 1 of the how, what, and why of intentional teaching. Take some time to reflect on what you've heard about setting up a classroom. How is play a part of your current classroom? What are some strengths and limitations of your current classroom? How could you improve the current design? How do you interact with children during play? Which basic adult interaction strategy do you feel comfortable with and why? Which basic adult interaction strategy could you use more often, and how will you do that? Do all the adults in the classroom support play in the same way? How do they differ? Here are some resources that may help as you enhance the environment and interactions during play. Thank you for your time and attention, and thank you for the work you do to provide a quality early childhood experience for the children in your program.